Racing at the quarter pole. The real story's made a big run on the inside. Oh, going down with Snowcap. We've had a spill.
May 7th, 2011 was a dangerous day on racetracks across the United States.
Again, final 16th, Bella Swan. Losing the rider there was clear indicator, but Bella Swan was charging.
It was the most accident-plagued day the sport had seen in 3 years. All told, there were 23 accidents.
Troubles with strength and
rolled. And taking a bad stride there was Battle of Hastings, immediately pulled up.
From Belmont Park in New York to Hollywood Park in Los Angeles, and 2 breakdowns at Churchill Downs. One in the most celebrated race of the year, the Kentucky Derby.
And he's going clear by 2 lanes and running to the line. Animal Kingdom wins the Derby!
Crossing the finish line in 15th place was Arch with a fractured front leg.
Now look at Arch, who's been pulled up.
The colt's promising racing career was over. But days like these shouldn't be happening. In 2008, 8 Bells finished second at the Derby and then broke 2 ankles. She was euthanized on the track.
What is going on here?
Congress held hearings.
What is happening to the sport of kings?
The racing industry promised to make its sport safer, both for horses and riders. An investigation by the New York Times shows that conditions haven't improved. If anything, they've gotten worse.
You see everywhere horses broken down. Cheap train, a cheap horse, cheap,
Unfortunately, we still have owners and trainers that they are in this business just for money and not for love.
Before, it seemed like to me that the people wanted to breed their horses that would last longer. Now they want the best horse for a short time.
So I'm just checking down the neck and, feeling for any unusual heat, pain, or swelling.
Margaret Olinger is a staff veterinarian at Finger Lakes Casino and Racetrack.
This horse is named the Wily Vet. Now, where would they ever come up with that name?
By her count, 63 horses died at this racetrack in 2011, more than double the fatalities 5 years before.
The quality of animal deteriorated over the years as a result of all the drug use.
The uptick in deaths is not unique to the Finger Lakes track.
I think racing fatalities are the Achilles heel of horse racing.
In March 2012, HBO canceled its new show, Luck, after a 3rd horse died during production. But the real racing statistics in California are far worse.
During that same period of time, there were 613 other horses at California racetracks that died. That's very, very difficult to justify.
Why do racehorses break down at such high rates? Many point to a growing reliance on drugs. Some trainers experiment with illegal concoctions, cancer drugs, Viagra, even cobra venom. The penalties are hardly a deterrent.
We think that the rules and penalties in racing still fall far short of the strictness that's required to deter some of the problems we see.
Legal drugs may be even riskier. If a horse is pumped full of pain medication, the track vet may not be able to diagnose an injury before it races. And a horse running through a masked injury can lead to catastrophic consequences.
We need to get away from medicating horses for pain and allowing them to run with a rider on their back and a stick in his hand, that it just doesn't smell right.
But racing has become a numbers game like never before. Some trainers will do whatever it takes to get their least expensive horses on the track as often as possible. At casino racetracks, also known as racinos, purse money can be 3 times the value of the horse.
Casinos have done nothing other than infuse money. Many of them don't really care that much about racing.
Horse racing is a multi-billion-dollar industry. 365 days a year, thoroughbreds compete in the grandeur of the Kentucky bluegrass and in bull rings behind casinos. And all too often, the horses are run right into the ground.
Hold it! Hold it, David! Hold it! Hold it! Hold it! Hold! Damn! Damn! Damn!
On a Saturday in March, a 3-year-old horse named Red Bendel takes his place on the racetrack. His odds are 8-5, making him the favorite among bettors.
And they're off.
But horsemen are also keeping an eye on the big colt, because this is a claiming race, which means the horses are up for sale.
Red Bendel is fourth, 4 lengths from the lead.
Underneath the grandstand in a racing office, 3 trainers have put in a claim to purchase Red Bendel, who is suddenly looking like a bargain at $10,000.
And it will be Red Bendel.
Moments later, Red Bendel's jockey senses something is wrong with the colt's ankle, and he's taken away in a horse ambulance. But the horse trading goes on. The track official will now shake a number from this bottle to choose the new owner.
Number 3, Linda Rice, I'm the trainer.
Hot dog.
Ms. Rice must now pay up.
It's very unfortunate, disappointed for someone that claims a horse like myself, but you know, when you're racing horses, you have to understand that there's some risk involved. And sometimes you end up on the wrong side of the line.
On the other side of the line is Red Bendel's previous owner, who cashes in $10,000 in the sale to Miss Rice and nearly $17,000 for Red Bendel's first-place finish. It's part of the new economics of horse racing in New York. When Resorts World Casino opened on the grounds of Aqueduct in late 2011, the new slot machine revenue enabled state racing officials to increase purse money significantly, leading to fuller fields and a renewal of interest among New York horsemen.
Put him away, Ruben! Put him away, Ruben! Put him away! Put him away!
I started getting calls from owners that hadn't been in the game in a long time. Hey, you know, we could finally make ends meet. You run third, you pay the monthly bill. You know, more and more people want to get in.
But the promise of so much prize money has brought with it new problems. Many horses now compete in races where their value is far outweighed by the purse structure, leading some trainers to run their horses as frequently as possible, sometimes to the detriment of the animal.
Strictly self-centered greed of not thinking about the horse, but thinking about maybe I can get one more race out of him and get a piece of the purse.
And they're off.
Since the opening of the Racino, horses running at Aqueduct have broken down or shown signs of injury at a rate more than twice the national average for thoroughbred racing.
Oh, and go unseating the rider there, and breaking down was number 5.
According to documents obtained by the New York Times, many of these horses were injected repeatedly with pain-masking medicine.
Far outside, it's West Vegas moving up from 6th.
When 3-year-old West Vegas ran in his first and final race, he had received 10 intravenous injections of potent pain medicine over the previous month, including one the day before he was fatally injured on the racetrack.
Pulling up there, pulling up, number 10, West Vegas. West Vegas is out of the race.
Those drugs should not be allowed, simply because it compromises not only the level playing field aspect of it, but really makes it very, very difficult to protect the health and welfare of the horse.
Across the U.S., attendance and interest in the game is dwindling. The racing industry is struggling to remain financially viable. Track owners are increasingly turning to the Racino model with its slot machine revenue to prop up the sport.
50% of these races don't have enough money bet on them to support them these days. And it makes absolutely no sense that all of this money is slot money that's being infused.
There, of course, are people in this industry that do not care about the horses or the animals. There are people that do cheat. There are people that cheat repeatedly.
Can you smile at the camera?
Maggie Moss is one of the sport's top owners. Her horses compete all over the country. She was named leading owner at the 2012 Fairgrounds meet in New Orleans. Earlier in the year, Moss bought some horses in claiming races at Aqueduct and discovered they were pushed too hard and were too sore to run. She pulled them from the track.
I just got out. The horses depended on the vets and the administration of New York to save them or take care of them, and they didn't do it. And if I could see it, I think they should have been able to see it also.
New York racing officials declined our request for an on-camera interview. In March, after Governor Cuomo appointed a task force to investigate Aqueduct's fatalities, the New York Racing Authority began aggressively disqualifying unsound horses before races. Despite these actions, the accidents continued.
And the two of them are heads apart for all. Going down there was number 5.
I remember them saying they didn't understand why all these horses were breaking down. And I wanted to say to people, do you read the Daily Racing Form? Do you just open it and see horses running 5 times in a month? Very, very sad.
Free them across the track for the lead.
After a New York Times report about fatalities on American racetracks, the Jockey Club proposed a national ban of painkillers used on race day.
We think that they should be limited, they should be withdrawn well ahead of competition so that competition is free of the influence of any kind of medication, period.
But it is all Scream Queen with a 16th to go.
Currently, regulation is done state by state, and change may be slow to come.
I think people forget that if not for these animals, none of us would either be employed or have jobs or have the enjoyment. I think we do forget the horses. You know, it's a problem that's gone on forever and getting worse.
In my career, I've been busted up, broken both collarbones, ribs, shoulder blade. I have 7 other vertebrae that I've fractured in compression fractures.
Sometimes the horses run and you're ready for a win and the horse go whoop like that.
All of a sudden I start going down. That's it. I mean, I don't even remember anything.
Are we a tool or are we a person? Without us, the game won't go, but we need respect to us too.
Here, kitty, kitty, kitty on the outside, and Quaqueritos here, kitty, 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 the winner. Quaqueritos 7.
How are you? Hi, Jackie, how are you? Good to see you.
Hanging in there pretty good.
In February, Hall of Fame rider Jackie Martin paid a visit to Sunland Park Racetrack in New Mexico, where a silent auction was underway to raise money for his growing medical bills. Just 6 months before, Martin was the most sought-after jockey in the Southwest.
The winning rider, taking both the stakes today, Jackie Martin.
But that changed on September 2nd, 2011.
They're running.
When a 2-year-old horse named Firepower suddenly broke down past the finish line, slamming Martin into the ground.
The next thing I can really remember is trying to get to him to the ambulance and him crying and hollering, telling me he couldn't feel his arms and couldn't move.
Martin's spine broke in 3 places, leaving him paralyzed from the neck down. He spent 3 months recovering in a Houston hospital before returning home to Sunland Park.
I don't remember hardly much. I remember getting on the horse in the paddock, and that's the last thing I remember.
Why Martin's horse broke down is still unclear. There was no post-mortem exam. According to New York Times analysis, 23 horses die on U.S. racetracks every week. Jockeys are on the front lines.
Riding races is very dangerous, and we'd overlooked that because we liked it.
You're looking at Jackie Martin, the first 4-time winner of this race.
Martin is widely considered one of the greatest quarter horse jockeys of all time. In his career, he won the All-American Futurity, the most distinguished competition in the quarter horse game, a remarkable 7 times.
Well, Jackie Martin has now gone into history here.
He had what everyone felt is the best set of hands on a horse. And the hands are the telegraph between the animal and the rider.
At the time of his accident, Martin was at the top of his game, for the 2nd time, a redemptive return after a dramatic fall. In 2006, he was charged with poaching a deer and possession of a small amount of a narcotic. He was barred from racing for 4 years.
He went through a mourning for his loss of racing. It took a while, and then he finally took ownership of what he had done wrong.
In the summer of 2010, Martin was cleared to race again.
They're running.
When he returned to Ruidoso Downs, owners lined up to offer him mounts.
He won his first race, I think the 3rd day he rode.
Dashing Little Cartel and Jackie Martin.
wins kept coming and coming.
And Jackie Martin, and What Have I Gotta Do? Not much more. What Have I Gotta Do wins by a length to first prize Lisa.
Someone of his absolute outstanding skills, hungry, was probably the most lethal thing a person ever seen on the racetrack.
The winning rider, Jackie Martin.
And the winning rider, Jackie Martin.
And the winning rider is Jackie Martin.
It seems like, after I've been off for 4 years, and the comeback is just, maybe that much better.
I've never ever seen anybody come back like Jackie did. He didn't lose 1 inch of his riding ability.
I think this is going to be a little special. Jackie Martin.
He won Quarter Horse Jockey of the Year in 2010.
Last year, you burst onto the scene like a newcomer in the second half of the year and take the nation by storm. Can you put any of this into perspective, what it's been like recently?
It was really hard for me. I guess.
I think Jackie and I both agree that it was probably the greatest accomplishment of his career when they stood up and they named him.
Everybody's put here for a reason, and his was to be a race rider, and he was an awesome race rider.
Chris Zamora is also a former jockey, with more than 1,000 wins and his own fair share of racing accidents. On November 25, 2008, his horse clipped heels with another horse, sending him hurtling to the ground, both horses landing on top of him.
Chicky joins them and having to check back severely and falling. Falling was Sinful Hearts.
I broke every rib, punctured both lungs, lacerated liver, perforated heart, pelvis broke in 4 places, back in 3 places, neck in 2 places, and a fracture from the front of my head to the back.
Zamora recovered from his injuries and cautiously returned to racing. But the accident of his friend, Jackie Martin, was a warning he could not ignore. He retired from racing less than a month later.
It just made me step back and realize what you put your family through.
Martin remains unable to breathe on his own.
All the doctors, and there's been a lot of them, have repeatedly told me that the ventilator damages his lungs, and the longer he stays on it, the ventilator will shorten his life expectancy significantly.
Despite the potential risk of a horse breaking down, jockeys like Jackie Martin say there's no other way to live.
I wouldn't change a thing. I guess if you'd give me a chance to say you're not paralyzed and you never rode a racehorse, I'd have to take the paralyzed, There's not a better feeling than riding. Not to me.
Lexington, Kentucky has a proud horse racing tradition. Locals call it the horse capital of the world. But there is another, lesser-known side of the racing business here. The work being done at the HFL Sports Science Laboratory.
This instrument is used to analyze for acidic and neutral substances.
Dr. Richard Sams is director of the laboratory. Here, some of the most advanced science in the country is being applied to screen for drug use in racehorses. At a time when the racing industry is in crisis over a pervasive drug culture, testing laboratories play a vital role in cleaning up the game.
We're able to acquire data now and to process it very rapidly and efficiently and see things in the samples that we were never able to see before.
Dr. Sams and the scientists here keep a database of more than 1,500 known substances, including many that can be used to make horses run faster.
What we have displayed here are the results for quantification of phenylbutazone in serum.
They actively update the database to keep up with new drugs being used at racetracks.
It is a real cat and mouse game. We devote considerable resources to developing methods to identify the substances that we hear are being used.
Drug testing standards vary state to state. Here in Kentucky, blood and urine samples are drawn from 2 horses every race and sent to the lab for screening.
This is the end result of the extraction.
According to Dr. Sams, his team identifies on average 2 suspicious findings a week. The vast majority are for therapeutic drugs that have been used improperly.
That sets in motion a series of meetings and potentially hearings at which trainers' representatives are afforded certain opportunities to explain what happened or what may have happened.
And they're off, and the develop a plan at Delta Downs. Coming away fast right in the middle is Isa Western.
On May 25, 2012, a 5-year-old horse named First Class Fred ran in a stakes race in Louisiana.
Up on the outside now, gaining here is First Class Fred, who's gaining. On the far outside, it's He's Gonna Dash. Big rush finish. About 6 noses on the line. That was just too tight to call.
First Class Fred won the race, but it was later discovered the horse had frog venom in its system. The venom, called Dimorphin, is a powerful exotic painkiller drawn from a South American frog. It is said to be 40 times more powerful than morphine and is used to mask injury by deadening pain. In June, the New York Times reported the use of the illegal dangerous drug. More than 30 horses have tested positive for the substance in multiple racing jurisdictions, mostly in Louisiana and the Southwest. The testing industry became aware of Dimorphin only after a trainer and a veterinarian informed racing authorities about its rumored use.
A veterinarian submitted a loaded syringe with what he thought was this frog venom to a racing laboratory at Texas A&M University. And after about 3 months of investigation, the A&M laboratory identified Dimorphin.
I'll have another Mario Gutierrez.
Once established, Dr. Sams and his team went back and tested samples from that year's Kentucky Derby weekend.
I'll have another wins the Derby.
They discovered no evidence of Dimorphin.
There are 6 calibrators used in the analysis.
Dr. Sams says that it is vital that honest horsemen continue to come forward when they hear of new, exotic chemicals that have made their way into the game.
They let people know what's going on because they're offended by people trying to circumvent the rules and manipulate the outcome of the race. So that happens, and we're thankful that those people are involved in this sport. Absent that kind of information, it's really difficult to find out what is actually being used.
Part of my job as a horseman is to figure out what the horse's needs are and what the horse's concerns are. Horses that do their job and enjoy it usually do it well for a long time. Thank you.
On a December afternoon, David Wright and dozens of other trainers brought their horses to show at the St. Louis Winter Festival. The festival is like many others held year-round across the United States.
Thank you very much.
Owners and riders compete for blue ribbons and prize money.
There are a lot of people that like to push themselves as riders and see how well they can do given the level of horse that they have.
He likes his brain scratched.
At a time when U.S. horse racing is under scrutiny for its pervasive drug culture, similar issues are facing the rarefied equestrian world. Records show that since 2010, random drug tests of horses at different events and disciplines uncovered dozens of violations for substances such as cocaine, antipsychotics, and depressants. Violations have occurred at the highest levels, including the Olympic trials.
In any sport, there are going to be some people who want to find shortcuts and want to find ways around the good way to do things and the correct way to do things, and that's when the animals suffer.
Mr. Wright says time and patience is a must when training a horse to perform well in the hunter discipline.
You don't like your belt tightened, do you?
He trains both show jumpers and show hunters, 2 very distinct disciplines. While show jumpers compete against a clock, hunters are judged subjectively.
The hunter discipline is where the horses are judged on their beauty and grace, evenness of tempo. I want that horse to walk in the ring, look very businesslike, but like he's having a good time. pick up a nice canter, go to the first jump on an even rhythm, and I would like to see him jump all the jumps in the same rhythm at basically the same canter in the same style.
Still, some trainers will use calming drugs and supplements to quiet a horse before a show.
Magnesium, for instance, large amounts of magnesium, it makes them sluggish. And the problem is it's also very, very dangerous. It can hurt the horse or kill the horse. And when somebody starts injecting something in large amounts that can be dangerous, sooner or later there's going to be a problem.
The Equestrian Federation says it responds to drug issues promptly. In February, it banned a popular but potentially lethal drug that sedates horses, making them more manageable during competition. They've also limited the use of painkillers and anti-inflammatory drugs. But a year ago, the sport's top veterinary group recommended that no horse receive drugs within 12 hours of competition. The Equestrian Federation has yet to adopt that rule.
The horses are doing this job because we want them to, not because they necessarily want to. They're really good about it. But again, it's the human's responsibility to make sure that the horses stay comfortable and that you look after their needs completely.